The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 21st, 2018 edition of Merlin One's Talk to Our Expert series. Today, I'm going to take you through some of the new features that we can look forward to in 2018. As usual, let's cover our webinar guidelines. We like to keep this short and sweet. It'll be less than 30 minutes. I am recording the session. Please ask your questions in the chat window. I will pause periodically to go look in the chat window to see if someone has posed a question. And your questions, as always, don't have to be related to today's topic. And of course, we always like suggestions for future topics as well. So this is a quick overview of some of the things that I'm excited about that we're going to make available to you in 2018. There's a new Merlin One customer portal. I'd like to talk about this just a little bit, and then we'll talk about the other things. If you have not already been contacted by someone from Merlin One customer service, someone will be in contact with you in the next several weeks to set up an account for you so that you can make your support requests and track your support requests online. So that is in progress, and many of you have already been registered in that portal, and that's an ongoing process. Coming in 2018 is a new version of Merlin. Version 5.6 is going to QA this week. I'm really excited about that. We'll talk about that. Version 6.0 will go to QA late in the second quarter of 2018. The Merlin Adobe extension has been updated with better use of linking, and I'm going to show you that. And also, we're going to have a new tiered storage service. I really don't have much to show you on that. Call us if you have questions about that. But basically, it's a mechanism for you to take your high-resolution version of your files and store them in other locations other than Merlin. So if you've got some outside storage, maybe you've subscribed to Box or something like that, and you'd like to archive content in this external storage area, you can do that. So first, we're going to talk about the highlights of version 5.6 that's coming. I'm going to just describe them here, and then eventually I'm going to go in and show these to you. But these are the new features that you're going to see in version 5.6 that's going to QA this week. You can now share private collections with other individuals. Okay, so if you create a private collection, you will be able to share it with others. I'll show you how that works. You'll be able to zoom in on the single view, so you can actually take a closer look in the single view to see, is it sharp? Are people's eyes open? You're trying to identify people, so that's something that's useful. We will have user-defined crop templates in version 5.6. I'm really excited about that. I think it makes the crop tool even more useful. There'll be a warning for you when you go to output large file requests. So if you're trying to output, 20 files or something like that, Merlin is going to give you a warning that, hey, you've got over 100 megabytes of information here, and it's just letting you know that, because it might take it a moment or two to organize that content and package it up and deliver it to you. So it's just giving you a heads up on that. One of the things I'm most excited about in 5.6 is the ability to add usage history on output. This is huge. So when you output an item, and regardless of the output method, you'll be able to add notation on how that content has been used, and I'm going to show that to you today. We have some improved logging. That's more of a behind-the-scene things that you really won't take advantage of. But because of the improved logging and other things, we have a new report on group entitlements. And this is especially useful for newer customers that are setting up their groups and their users, and you can actually see what entitlement or what permission bit is associated with each group in a spreadsheet. So that's a nice thing to have as well. And the other thing that we're going to release in 5.6 is allowing you to actually do ordering from the mobile devices. So in the past, you've not only been able to run an order form on your desktop, now it's going to run in your mobile devices as well. And I know we have some customers that have been looking for that, and they'll be really excited to see that. Version 6.0. This is the first time we've actually talked about this in public, and I'm excited to show this to you as well. It is a new UI, and I'm going to show you a preview of this. Okay, it has some additional grid views. It's very minimalistic, and it's going to be our default mobile UI. So that's the purpose of version 6.0. It's also designed for sites that are looking to make Merlin accessible for users that want something really, really simple, really, really streamlined. They don't need to see a lot of tools. They're not your power users. They just want to go in, find their stuff, and do something with it. And so I'm going to show you a preview of that. It's still a work in progress. Keep that in mind. I'd love to hear what you think about it and to get your comments on it. So I'm going to pause for a moment because I've got some questions, and let's see what I've got here. Let's see, just a moment. Is it possible to make the blue? I'm trying to get to this question, just a second. Well, Jan, I see that you've asked a question, but for some reason I'm not able to read the whole thing. I see, is it possible to make the blue? And I'm not getting that. Maybe you can type that in the chat window rather than the question window, and that might help me, but for some reason I'm not getting the entire question. So we're going to show you version 6. I'm excited about that. And the Merlin Adobe extension. I know we've talked about that late in 2017. I'm really excited about the Merlin Adobe extension, and we've made some improvements to it based on customer feedback. So there's improved management of linked assets, and I'm going to walk you through that. It's really quite nice. If an item in Merlin gets versioned, for example, you color correct a picture that's in Merlin and check it back in, and you open up an InDesign document that has that file on it, you'll know right away that that item has been updated, and it will allow you to update the item on your InDesign page with a simple mouse click. So that's those are the highlights of what I'm going to show you. Let's actually dig in and go through those things, and rather than just talk about them. So I'm logged into one of my demo servers, and so the first thing I want to show you is I want to talk about sharing private collections. And so it's pretty easy. I'm looking at my collections palette on the left-hand side. I've got a couple of private collections, for example, one called Chat, and I want to share this with somebody. So just like a shared collection, I can now email a link to somebody. Okay, and of course this presumes they have a login to Merlin, so I can email them a link. I can send them the URL by cutting and pasting this, or I can fill this information out and add email text that will be part of that email and send that, and the recipient of the email would be able to follow the link back to Merlin. It will show them what's in the private collection. Okay, so we're having to do some really cool stuff behind the scenes to make this work, because a private collection is private. And so your recipient will never see the collection listed in their private tree. The only way they'll be able to access the results of the collection would be to, again, refresh this URL or click on the link that's included in the email. So that's kind of that's what we're doing there, and it's kind of a nice thing. Okay. Here's something that's new. Let's take a photo. We'll pick this one, for example. Let's pick this one. So we're going to make this photo go to single view. And this is a new feature. Notice I have new tools in my single view. I have a plus button and a minus button. And so if I click my plus button, it's going to allow me to zoom in on my content. And then I can use the trackpad or the scroll wheel on my mouse or the scroll bars at the bottom of the picture to go left and right and or up and down and zoom in on content. Or I can hit the minus sign and zoom it back out to its normal view. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. Okay, now I want to talk to you about user-defined crop templates. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to my crop menu. And in my crop menu, I can set up a crop. For example, I want to set up a crop that's exactly 5 inches by 7 inches. So I'm going to set this to be 7 inches and lock this dimension as well. So notice I have a crop window that's 5 by 7. It really doesn't matter how I adjust the crop. It's going to reflect 5 by 7 inches. And now notice I have a new area in my crop box that I can choose to save the template. And I can assign the template a name. So I would probably name this something like 5 by 7 vertical. And I'd be able to save that, and once saved, it will appear in this list. It's currently not appearing yet. We're still working on that, but you can see how that this is what this is going to look like for you. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, I'm going to pause just for a second and see if I have any more questions. I do have a question. Can the crops be globally defined? In other words, if I create a crop and then you want those crops shared out to other users, I believe that's what you're asking, and the answer is yes. Someone would be able to. Someone from Merlin One customer service would need to go in and make that happen, but they would basically take your defined crops and make them available to all of your other users. Okay, and then you'd still be able to create your own personal crops on top of that. Okay, is it possible to make the blue bar at the top of the screen smaller? You're talking about the title bar here. Jan, we haven't done anything about that yet, but I think you might like what I'm going to show you in 5.6 because that may take care of what your requirement is there. Okay, so I'm going to remove my crop and I'm going to cancel out of this because I want to talk to you about a couple of other things. So I'm going to go back to my grid view, and I'm actually going to go to my private collection. I've got a private collection called Chat where I've added some content into it. And so I'm going to pick a video because it's fairly large and a photo, and I'm going to select download. And notice in the upper right-hand corner of my download, I'm getting a warning sign here that the total file size of this is 116.1 megs. So I'm getting this warning because my total files selected exceed more than 100 megabytes. Okay, so I've set that up. So that's a little bit about the warning for your output request. Okay, let me go back and check to see if there are any new questions. Can crops be globally defined? Nope, nothing new. Okay, so let's talk some more about what you're looking at on my download screen. Notice that some things have been rearranged. So in addition to being able to change the format of a still photo, so if I want this photo to come out as a PNG file, I have the ability to do that. And I've had that ability for quite some time. But here's a new ability. I can also choose to output the video. Notice I had a video and a photo selected at the same time. So I have an option to output the video as, and I can choose original, which is the original file size as uploaded to Merlin, or the proxy version of the file size, which is the lower resolution web-friendly version of the video. So you can see you've got the option here to download the video in two different file sizes. So that's something that's new. Also, what's new is the ability to add an output history. Now, in this case, none of my output histories requests were set to be mandatory, so it's optional, and I have to open this up in order to see what's here. And this is configurable. As an admin user, you will be able to choose what you're asking your users to fill out as part of the output history. You're also able to choose what's mandatory as part of the output history. You're also able to configure pick lists as part of the output history. So for example, for this one, it's listed as department. It might also equally be newspaper section, and you'd be able to choose the section or the department that you're outputting this to. So I'm going to say this is for the sales department, and I can add some notes here and the date this is going to be used. So I'm going to say, yep, we're going to use it tomorrow, and I can fill this information out, and this information all becomes part of that output history. So this is really great if you don't have a production environment that records that information back to Merlin automatically, which a lot of our customers do have, but not everyone has that type of environment. This allows you to record that information at the time of download. And I'm really excited about this, and you get the same opportunity to add that information not only when you're doing a download, but also when you're doing a share. So here I'm in my email, a link, and again, I have the same options to output the video as original or proxy, and I have the ability to change the image format. So if I want to change the image format, I can do that. And again, I can update my output history at this time. And notice in this case, my output history is restricted to just the department. Nothing else is listed here, and it's a shorter list as well. So I wanted to show you how configurable this output history dialog is. It can be different for each of your different types of outputs, and it can be different for each of your different user groups as well. So it's really easy to go in and manage that. So that's my output history. All right, I'm going to pause for a second and see if there are any new questions. Is there something indicating if the download of that 100 plus megabytes is still processing? No, there's not. It happens on the background on the server, and so it will deliver it to you, because it has to download it and zip it. That is something that is on our list to, be mindful of and take a look at. So we don't have that yet. So that's a great question. Thanks for asking it and reminding us of that. Okay, I'm going to close my output dialog, and I want to talk next about order form. Now, it's not wired into my demo version of Merlin yet, but I wanted to show you just a preview of what the mobile order form looks like, right? So here, in fact, why don't I use my slideshow view to do this? So here's my order form, okay, or actually here's my view in slideshow view of Merlin of my assets. And if you've noticed in this case, these 3 items have been selected, and notice in the upper left-hand corner of my phone picture, there's a shopping cart. And when you click the shopping cart, it's going to basically allow you to fill out this form, and you can see we've already configured this for another customer, and you can see what this is going to look like. But basically, you'd be able to fill out the form. You've got mandatory fields, and then you'd be able to submit the order. And in the background, the same thing happens that always happens with an order form. The order processor would be notified, and the ordered items would be automatically added to an order collection. And so if you're using ordering, you're already familiar with that. If you're not using Merlin's order form and you think you might be interested in that, please contact any of us, and we'll help talk to you about what is required to configure that, because it's strictly configuration. Every Merlin is capable of being set up to handle ordering. Okay, the last thing, I already mentioned it. There's a report. There's a new report that you can access. It is the, so if I go to reports here, there's the new group entitlement report. And so basically you just, there's nothing to configure here. You go get the report. And when you go look at the report, it's going to basically be a list of all of your groups in Merlin. So you can see the first column is all of my groups in Merlin. And then my next column is all of the different entitlements that are associated with each of those groups. So that's kind of a cool thing to have as well. And that covers all of my new things that we're going to see in 5.6. So what I'd like to do now is talk to you about version 6.0. So this is a work in progress. I'm not looking at live data. It is canned data. There's some things that are still need to be made functional on this, but I wanted to give you a preview of where we're heading with this UI. Okay, so I'm going to start. Notice it's very minimalistic. I've got items selected here. When I roll over them, I get some information about each item. If I can actually, if I scroll up, and by default it's not visible, I can see some additional tools. So for example, I can make my thumbnails larger or smaller. So I love this, being able to do this. Okay, so I can make, change the size of my thumbnails directly from here. That's a nice thing to be able to do. If I want to, I can actually reveal metadata as well. So by checking the little I button, I now have metadata revealed under each of my items. Okay, I have some other views. So this is the view that you're probably used to seeing, something like this, where horizontal pictures are horizontal and vertical pictures are vertical, and they all take up the same amount of space on your screen. It's very grid-like, okay? But take a look at this. This is a tiled view. So regardless of the format of the picture, it's maximizing the space on your screen, and everything is represented as a square. And we have we've talked to some people, and they really kind of like this view. Okay, so that's another view. And now I have my mosaic view. So again, verticals are vertical and horizontals are horizontals. But notice if I have a panorama or something in here, it will take up even more space and will go even wider. So I have uneven rows and columns, okay, of content as I scroll through here. So that is my mosaic view, and so that's another one of the views that you'll have available to you. Okay, we're going to have themes available to you, so you can see down here if I wanted to switch to the light theme, I can do that as well. And so your themes will show up down here, that little button in the lower right-hand corner. Let me show you single view. By double-clicking on an item, it goes to single view. And did you notice briefly in the right-hand side, my metadata appeared? And so if I scroll over to the right, I can make my metadata appear and it will stay there. But we do that just to kind of let you know that, hey, there's some metadata here, you should know about it. And it works pretty much the same in all of the views. So again, if I go to single view on an item, my metadata pops out. And if I want to get it back, all I have to do is do a little mouse scroll to the right, and there it is. Okay, so that's kind of cool. All right, let's close out of this, and let's talk about some other things that we're working on here. We reveal things as you need them in this UI. So if I click an item, if I select an item by checking the box, notice I now have additional tools that have appeared that would apply to this item. I can download it, I can share it, I can print it, I can do a more like this search, or I can version this item or access the versioning tools. Watch this. If I select a second item, my tools change, because now that I've got more than one item, maybe I want to take advantage of my compare tool, or maybe I want to link these items together. So as you click and unclick content, appropriate tools will reveal themselves to you as you go through the interface. And so again, if there's a tool that's not needed, we're not going to make it available to you. If it's not appropriate, that is, we're not going to make it available. But when it does become appropriate, the tool will automatically become available. Same thing with my search. So I've got a very basic and simple search button here. Jan, I know one of the things you're concerned about is maximizing screen space. And look, we've got very little space taken over by toolbars and such. So it's all, we've really maximized what's available to you. And so here's my search area. But once again, if I want to use an expanded search or a more powerful search, I can open up my search dialog, and I have all of the options to search for different content types, or whether I want to search for something that's approved or not, or search by city or state or country, or by dates, or any of these other things. And notice this is to run a new search. I can also reveal previous searches, and I can also reveal save searches. So Merlin's automatically going to keep track of any searches that I've run previously during this session, or I can save searches, which is something that you can do now. Okay, so again, we like this, and we reveal things as you need them. In the upper left-hand corner, notice I've got my collection palette. And so if I want to add something to a collection, a simple mouse drag up to the collection will cause the collection palette to open up, and then I'll be able to just drop the item on the collection with a simple mouse drag and drop like I've done right there. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And let's see, I managed to make my collection palette go away, so let me refresh my screen. There we go. And let me show you what we've got here. So again, just like in Save Searches, you can look at your private collections, your shared collections, or recent collections that you've accessed, and they're all going to be here. Okay, so that's a little bit about collections and a little bit about the new UI. Again, it's a work in progress. I would love to get your comments and feedback on this. If you need more information about this, we're happy to do that. Let's see, I've got a whole bunch of questions here. So let's take a look here. Does this replace order form in Tracks? You know, that's a great question. It might. It depends upon your workflow. That's something we should talk about because the order form in Tracks, it might also be used to request a photo. But keep in mind, when the order form in Merlin, you either get the order form or you get the download button. You don't get both. Okay, so that may preclude you from using that, Deb. That's a great question. I don't think it really does replace the Tracks request form that you've got set up, but we can talk about that a little bit more. And Jan's happy about more space on the screen, and I thought he might be. And of course, I bet he's also especially excited about the zoom in, zoom out capabilities. So that's all about 5.6. I've got a few minutes left because I promised to keep this short. So what I'd like to do is jump into my little InDesign demo and show you how this works. So I'm in InDesign. I've created a little page here. I've got my Merlin extension showing up here. So if I click my Merlin extension, it reveals itself. Here's Merlin. If I want to place this picture on my InDesign document, so this is actually Merlin, right? And so I've logged into it. It's the same server that we're working from for the previous part of this demo. By clicking this, I can now place the item on the page, and there's my item on the page, right? So that's pretty cool, and I could go get other items out of Merlin and place them on the page. But let's do this. Let's go to Photoshop, and again, here's my Adobe extension inside of Photoshop, okay? And let's let me refresh this. So let's take a look at this photo. This is the same photo we just looked at, and we're going to version it in Photoshop. So I'm going to open it in Photoshop as a new version, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to convert it to, I'm not going to crop it, I want to convert it to grayscale. So I'm going to just come down here and say I'm going to make this a black and white photo. So there it is as a black and white photo. And now I'm going to go back to Merlin and I'm going to check it back in. Okay, the item is highlighted here. I'm going to click the little plus button, and it's giving me the opportunity to add a comment, convert it to black and white, and I'm going to check it back into Merlin, and it's going to become a new object in the Merlin database, a new version of the object in the Merlin database, that is. And so it's actually, and look, there it is. It's showing up as a grayscale object. Notice it's listed as being version 2. And watch this. Let's flip around back to InDesign. And look what's happened. InDesign has gotten a little warning icon in the upper left-hand corner. It says click to update the content, right? So if I click that, it goes and grabs the latest version of the item in Merlin and puts it on my page. So this is really powerful. This is really useful. And of course, if I wanted to take the entire InDesign document and store it back into Merlin, I could do that just by clicking the plus button here. I would give it a name. I would call this Antelope Canyon, for example. And I can add a comment and send it, and off it goes. It's going to upload that item back up into Merlin. So I apologize. I went over by 1 minute and 21 seconds this week, but so many times we're a lot shorter than that. But that's everything I wanted to talk about this week, and I was really excited. Let's see, other questions. New developments for Trax. Jan, I'm not ready to talk about Trax yet, so nothing on the immediate horizon, but it is something that we are talking about discussing. Okay, with the shared private on different tabs in version 6, how easy or difficult to drag between collections? That's a great question, Jackie. I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm assuming, again, because it's not fully functional, I would be able to view a collection and then drag it from one collection into another without any problem. So I don't anticipate that being an issue. Jim is asking, what version of InDesign and Photoshop do you need for the Merlin extension? There is a charge for the Merlin extension. I can pop you some information on that. What version? You just need Creative Cloud, so it's not going to run on Photoshop 6 or InDesign 6. It's going to require a Creative Cloud version of InDesign or Photoshop. Let's see if I've got any other questions. Maybe the InDesign Photoshop option is also available for drag and drop to CCI. We'll have to talk about that. Probably not quite in the way I've shown you here. I know we do have something for drag and drop to CCI, but I don't know that it's in our current Merlin X interface. We should talk about that offline. Okay. Hey, I do appreciate everybody taking your time out to come listen to me. I'm really excited about a lot of these new features. And, I've just been clarified. For the InDesign, it requires Photoshop 2015.5 to 2018, or InDesign Creative Cloud 2017 to 2018. So it's a more recent InDesign than for Photoshop. So I've got the exact version numbers there. And Jim, I'll send that to you as well, so you've got that in front of you. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your taking the time to join me today, and I look forward to seeing you next month. If you've got questions or anything else that we've talked about today or anything we didn't talk about, please let me or one of my colleagues know. Thanks, everybody. And as my colleague Mike Cullen says, happy Wednesday.